Tell us about projections. Projections. This is the part of the private placement and all the materials that just freaks people out the most. Most people don't have the financial wherewithal. I'm talking about the promoters to put these things together. It makes them very nervous. I always think that less is more. Let me explain a little bit about projections, what investors are looking for, and really what the dirty little secret about projections is that very few people really understand. First, let's talk about projections in general. Projections are what's going to happen at some point in the future based on some estimate that we make right now, based on some guesses that we have about the future. We'll take a number of variables, vacancy rate, interest rate, inflation rate. We'll take all these different things and we'll try and build them in and make it happen. And that's what we try to do. And we try to make them very complicated because a lot of people think that the more complicated they are, the more accurate they are. Well, I will tell you that the more complicated they are, the less accurate they are, because the more variables there are that can possibly go wrong. And let me promise you, there are a lot of things that go wrong with projections. When I was a youngster at Price Waterhouse, one of the first things that happened is they put me in a small room the size of a closet. They said, Block, go in this little room and don't come out until you know how to use this computer. This is in 1985. And we were using Lotus 123. It was a very basic machine. Nobody really knew how to use these software tools. So I'm in there and I'm practicing. And I eventually became one of the really most proficient people on the whole floor at the firm. And anytime somebody needed some worksheet work done, they would call me and I would help them. And here's what happens. So you build a spreadsheet. Let's say you have your real estate apartment building, and you say across the top, your month 1, 2, 3, 4, you have all your months, and then down the side you have all your different activities. So the amount of rental income that's going to come in, the vacancy rate, the total income that you're going to get, minus your expenses and minus the mortgage and all the different things, and then it calculates all the way down, let's say for 60 months, so you finally get to the bottom corner, and in the bottom corner is the answer that says that in a 5-year period of time you're going to have made 4%. And then people look at the thing and they go, no, too low. Let's adjust some of the variables. Okay, how about this? Let's say instead of having a vacancy rate of 5, let's make the vacancy rate 4, and let's see what happens. And the thing recalculates, get down to the bottom, and now you have a return on investment, let's say of 5. Perfect. Okay, that's still a little low. Let's take a look at the escalation rate. So what's the inflation going to be? What's the rental increase? We were thinking that it's going to be 3, but let's try it at 4. So we put it down. Things recalculating now comes out to 5.2. Let's try and take another little tick, and then you can see what happens. So finally, you adjust the interest rate, the inflation rate, the vacancy rate, all the different things, and then eventually you come down there and you go 6.1. Perfect. That's exactly the number that we want to put out there. Well, that's not the real number. That's just a number based on a number of different assumptions and guesses and different kinds of things. So, what I always say to people is that I got so good at doing projections at Price Waterhouse that even I believed them. And that's the problem, is that people believe these things, but the truth is that they're not to be believed. So I would say you need to make some projection of your future income, but I would also tell you that you want to be very, very simple in what you do. You do not want to be extremely thorough, extremely detailed. The more detailed you are, the more questions people are going to ask, and the more inaccuracy there's likely to be. So I would be very, very careful about how you lay this out and what you do, and I think you'll be much safer this way. So you also, one last point here, you want to have external projections for your investors, and you want to do the best you can with your internal projections, because your internal projections are what going to help you to know how much juice is really in the deal, and that you really need to be honest with yourself about what's going to happen. You need to build in your own fees and your structures so that you know what you're going to make and how that's going to work out for you, what the investors are going to get. And you really need to be honest with this to make sure that you have an accurate representation of what the deal really is before you move forward with it. So take some of those things into account, share information, do the best you can to use those projections in a good way. Try not to play the games that I've seen a lot of other guys play. Go out, make this a great business and stake your claim.